The rogue opens his eyes right in the middle of the battle, gasping for breath. She pushes herself to stand, and a huge wave of pain floods every part of her body. Yep, I'm sure there are a few broken ribs in there. Even though it hurts to move, she keeps going because that's the only thing that counts. She looks around at the complete ruin, frantically trying to find her missing friends. The scene is dark because the elf has fallen and the wizard is crushed. Only the priest and the hero remain standing, locked in a final, desperate fight against the Demon King. The Demon King gathers a raging wave of dark power to unleash his ultimate move, the Demon King's authority. Then a dirty fog spills out to fill the air, and a whole army of dead soldiers bursts up from the ground. The rogue stares in horror, unable to believe the Demon King still has enough power to bring back an army of the dead. Without wasting a second, she slides on her skull mask and shouts at the priest to give her a power boost. Now is the moment to step up and use your power. As the priest chants, and her skull bursts into flames, she unleashes her full power to carve a path through the sea of undead. He tells the hero to handle the small fry while he goes to fight the Demon King. With the way open, the hero and the Demon King crash together, their swords hitting so hard the earth shakes. The hero strikes hard, slashing the Demon King's arm clean off. With his glowing sword aimed at the beast's chest, the hero shouts, "It's over, Demon King," but the Dark Lord still isn't finished. As his arm grows back, he snatches the hero and squeezes him tight just as the boss fight hits its second stage. The Demon King's heart burns so hot he's about to blow up. Suddenly, a rogue darts in from nowhere and slices the hero free. She smiles at the Demon King and says, "If you're going to die, let's do it together," right before his power explodes and swallows her whole. As the smoke fades, the rogue steps out only to find relief instantly replaced by horror, for a gaping wound tears through her side while the battered Demon King stands behind her, still very much alive. But the rogue doesn't hold back, and he kicks the Demon King right in the face. He is stunned to see that she somehow survived the blast right in front of her. He holds her down, realizing she is just like him and therefore worthy of what he has to give. Then the rogue screams, "Do it now," and the hero doesn't hesitate, swinging his holy sword Ascalon to slice the Demon King right in half. As the monster crashes down, the hero and priest sprint to the rogue, only to stare in shock as her deadly wound starts to heal itself. Well, a voice answers, "Did you receive the blessing?" The hero stares up in shock that the Demon King is still alive, only for his old friend to reassure him that his body has finally given out. He admits it's their win and sends them his final words. "My tale finishes now," he claims, "so it is time for you to begin yours." His last words are a mysterious warning, hoping your path ends differently than ours, where we were lost and foolish. His last words were to pray, never stop, and keep moving forward, which was quite unexpected. And so the Demon King shatters into dust, leaving the survivors standing alone on the empty battlefield. The big fight for the whole world was finally done. The heroes come home to a huge party. After that, the wizard heads back to his magic school, while the elf starts his long trip home. The priest goes back to his sacred work while the hero finally becomes king. And the rogue? Well, she just fades away into the shadows. And so, the land settled into a long, quiet age of peace that lasted for ages. Skip ahead about 150 years. Deep inside the dark forest, a single person begins to move. Our old rogue is still alive. Her name is Ben LRA, and now that she is more than 150 years old, she has officially entered her emo era. She thinks about how the world has turned mountains to dust and plains to wasteland, leaving only the stars and her own story as the only things that still stand. She gazes at her bony fingers and wonders about the curse of never dying. The Demon King gave her a final blessing before he died, but it was actually a curse that would never fade away. She asks herself, what good is immortality if I'm just stuck in an endless grind with no point? If she cannot even die, but is forced to just keep existing, what is there left to live for? What good is it if she must be all alone forever? Just then, a child's voice appeared out of nowhere, bringing a shooting star and a skeleton into the same night. Then LRA freezes in shock as a small child suddenly appears right in front of her. For this immortal being, time had frozen, but this strange meeting on the mountain behind Shangtab village suddenly made her lonely world feel like it was finally starting to move again. Ben LRA stood frozen, wondering how a young kid could be out by himself in the middle of the night. But instead of screaming and running away, the kid does something crazy and grabs Ben LRA's face, squeezing it tight. Her eyes sparkling with excitement, she screams, "It's a talking skeleton," while the kid keeps poking her face until Ben Lara finally snaps. Stop, she shouts, amazed that this is the first child she's met who didn't run screaming in terror. Didn't anyone teach you to fear things that aren't human? The kid replies with a grin. I was taught never to judge by appearances, which just makes Ben LRA grumble that his 100-year-old dramatic moment has been ruined by this weirdo. The little kid is buzzing with excitement, asking if you're a knight and calling your sword cool. Ben LRA stands tall with pride, acting as a guarded messenger with a cursed sword at her side, even though she insists she isn't a master. The kid's eyes go wide as he realizes the Emperor's messenger, standing before him, must be incredibly strong. Diving into the scene, Benler brags that her job is super special while tapping her sword until it glows with dark energy. She shows off her magic by pulling a tiny purple beast from the dirt right in front of us. The kid is totally amazed and kneels down, begging the master to take him as a disciple so he can get strong. But Lara just laughs and says she's tired of the boring routine and doesn't want the trouble. She instantly grabbed Ben LRA and shook him, yelling that he was a cheap, cold-hearted skeleton for saying no to her. The kid still pouts while Benler tries to explain it for the 10th time, proving once again that I'm no master. The next morning, Ben LRA seeks a moment of peace and quiet. Suddenly, the kid sprints past, screaming so loud she startles the poor skeleton. Ben LRA asks if the kid will ever go home, but she's busy grinding experience with a stick and shouting that she won't leave until he teaches her. So when LRA insists she leave for fear of looking like a kidnapper, the kid drops a bomb by saying not to worry about that. The fire swallowed my home and took my parents away. My mom said I had to get strong if I wanted to survive on my own, so that's exactly what I had to do. She turns back to Ben Luro with a grin that says, "Come on, you get it, right?" All at once, a picture of her dear friend, the hero, flashes before her eyes. She lets out a long sigh, completely defeated. She promises to teach him swordsmanship, and the kid is thrilled, but he wonders if she's serious. Ben LRA strikes a pose and declares that a strong woman can't refuse a child, leaving the kid stunned as he realizes, "You were a woman," before wincing in pain. After a quick pause, the kid just shrugs it off and starts cheering. As the kid runs away, LRA thinks to herself, "Emperor, your people are going through a very hard time. So, I'll teach this child to make up for missing your message." And that's how the training adventure starts. We see a quick mix of scenes where they spar, take naps, and practice summoning monsters. Every day, they toil away, chased by louder orders and sometimes hurting helpless travelers. As everything happens around them, the two lonely people grow a bond so strong nothing can break it. Years went by. The little one grew strong, and her moves became fast and exact. She isn't just a kid swinging a stick anymore. She wields her blade with such skill that she can easily match her master in a fight. 11 years later, we spot someone swimming in the forest lake. Then LRA appeared with dinner, telling the kid, "Let's eat." A voice answers, "Oh, master," and a lovely young woman steps out of the water. Later, sitting by the fire, the young woman turns serious. "Master, I've got something important to share with you." Ben LRA lifts his head, wondering why the air suddenly feels so heavy. She tells how the Empire left her old village behind after a huge wave of monsters attacked. She says that everyone has given up. Then LRA knows exactly where this is going. "You're planning to become a hero, aren't you? After 11 years of living together, I can pretty much read your mind." She remembers her old friend the hero, who always promised to help people, even when they all laughed at him. The hero spoke plainly, showing that no special training was needed to save lives. Then LRA stands up and offers you a dagger, saying, "As your master, I give this to you." She holds the sword out to me, saying, "I hope you only pull this blade when your heart is right." Then LRA gives her final command, "Save the world first, and only return once it's done. I'll always be right here, waiting for you." She jumps for joy, waves a quick goodbye, and dashes off to start her big adventure. LRA waves back with a sigh, wondering just how many long years she'll have to wait. She thinks it'll take her 5 or 10 years, which is a very long time for a person to wait. Until she comes back, Ben LRA's only job is to keep this place safe. She trusts that kid with her whole heart, knowing he will save the world and find his way back, no matter how long it takes. All she needs to do is wait. The time they shared was just a short blink in Ben LRA's endless life. And though she was alone again, it didn't feel scary this time. Time moved on until footsteps shattered the long, quiet silence. Ben L sits in the dark with his cursed sword, now wrapped in vines that have grown there as time passes. A familiar voice asks, "Did you get lost too, master?" And LRA grumbles, I told you I'm not a master." She opens her eyes to see her battered and bloody student, who offers a weak smile and whispers, "Hello, master." LRA just stood there, her bony face stuck in shock. With a bloody grin, the kid asks, "It's been a while, hasn't it?" while Ben LRA takes a closer look at the missing leg. But the kid just throws her head back and laughs, proving it was a truly wonderful adventure. She started sharing everything with Ben LRA, describing the massive empire she'd seen, the terrifying monsters that lived there, and how she used the skills he taught her to help people. The crowd cheered her as a hero, but the Emperor saw her only as a danger and sent men to kill her. In a sudden rush, she trips and falls straight into your arms. She whispers, "I'm sorry, Master. I feel a bit dizzy," and weakly asks if he has been well or cried while she was away, while her scarred hand tightly grips her cloak. "I want to hear your story, Master," she whispers until her voice vanishes into silence. As her only student dies in her arms, something ancient and terrible wakes up inside Benayer. A squad of Imperial troops moves through the woods, hunting the hero. They're grumbling that the hero brat made them chase her all the way to the mountain when she could have just died in a much better spot. Suddenly, the leader sees a figure far away and yells, "Hey, pack up and leave the mountain." But slowly, with bones grinding together, that figure steps out from the dark shadows. Suddenly, a mountain looms ahead, and then the LRA's voice shakes with pure anger. "You still think that's a mountain?" The ground suddenly explodes as giant purple monsters burst out and swarm the scared soldiers. Then LRA shows the mountain's secret by revealing that 120 years ago, she discovered the broken pieces of the Demon King's army hidden here. She went in herself and tore every single one of them apart until none were left. Dead bodies, stacked high, became the dirt the forest grew from. She has been standing guard here ever since, basically blocking the way to a huge farm filled with the dead. Now she thinks with black tears running down her face that there is nothing left to stop her. The Knight Commander frantically urges his men to calm down and line up. He yells that one necromancer can only control so many of the dead. Oh, but he was completely mistaken. His voice fades away as he stares at a towering mountain of screaming souls that is rising right in front of him. He can only hear his men screaming as his face turns into a mask of pure terror. He stammers out spells to raise an entire army, but when you ask who you are, he just freezes in shock. Just as he is about to finish, a ghostly sword slices right across his helmet, killing him instantly. When you ask who I am, the voice of the LRA roars across the battlefield. I speak for the Emperor, and my words carry the Empire's voice. She drives her sword into the earth and sends a powerful blast of dark energy exploding outward. Her message bounces off the walls of the Empire, and everyone must stop to listen to what the messenger has to say. In a quiet village, a boy watches from his window as the sky turns a deep red, wondering what could possibly be happening. Then Lara reads the Founder's last order, saying that if the Empire ever wanders off course, the loyal people are allowed to steer it back on its own. She has gathered her endless army of the dead, standing together in perfect order and waiting to fight. Suddenly, a terrifying new figure clad in black feathers appears, standing atop the skull of a colossal monster. Benayer is about to bring his final judgment down on the empire that betrayed its own people. "I'll make you pay for your crimes right here in my old homeland." A soldier who narrowly escaped Benayer's anger keeps walking with a heavy heart. He sees a village way off in the distance. He believes he has finally found a place where he is safe. Spoiler, he hasn't. Instead, he watches helplessly from the front row as a terrifying horde of monsters rips through them. Deep within the village, a knight receives a chilling warning that the southern gate is being overrun by a horde of undead. A roasted potato zooms through the air while screaming nonsense words. And yep, that's a living grenade ready to blow up in a huge explosion. Even the undead army sends potato bombs raining down from the sky. Two knights look up in horror, realizing they are facing something far worse than a simple undead summoner. This isn't just a group, it's a whole organized army ready for battle. A knight tells his men to run away, but a single person steps forward anyway. It was crystal clear that he had completely forgotten to take cover. In a flash, he unleashes his Wolf Fong move. That guy's like a giant steel tornado tearing right through the crowd. This isn't just any knight. He is the official knight of the Empire, Ishur Soma. He is truly amazed and can't stop wondering what kind of necromancer could summon such a powerful army. Then he finally sees the one person he really wants to find. High above the village, a huge purple giant made of fire hangs over everything. He takes a good look at him to figure out that's the necromancer they're talking about. Look up and see the giant cradling our hero, Ben LRA, right in his hands. As find it weird to see a caster lead the fight without hiding behind his minions, since that never really happens. But as we know, Ben LRA isn't just any soft mage. Back on the ground, Escher charges into the front lines once more and unleashes his super special Wolfang technique. He even cuts Ben LRA with a sharp slash. She watches every move closely, eyes locked on a blade that slashes at her legs from a spot it shouldn't possibly reach. It's just like the cut made on the kid's leg. Ben LRA's rage flares up as he realizes the truth, and he shouts, "Was it you?" just before his massive, undead monster crashes to the ground. Then LRA drops from the sky, her eyes fixed on her single target. S clenches his jaw, getting ready for a really rough moment. Then Lyra stops waiting and attacks first. S just barely gets his hands up to stop the blow. The two exchange blows, but Ben LRA is so quick that he lands a kick on S's leg. S screams in agony because his leg is completely useless now. Before Ben LRA can even get his footing, an opponent slams his sword right out of his grip. With S disarmed, Ben LRA rains down a wild barrage of punches that nearly crush him, but S grabs her sword to strike the killing blow, only for S to kick and slash in return, sending Ben LRA stumbling back a few feet. Beaten and covered in blood, S could only scream that he was a monster. He admits he hasn't been pushed this hard since battling the legendary Four Knights and demands to know exactly who Ben LRA is. Then LRA's answer is clear. It's a ghost come back from the dead. S knows he needs to buy some time, so he starts trash-talking to do it. He laughs off the whole idea and asks, "What revenge are you even talking about? We've taken so many lives that you wouldn't know who I'm talking about if you try to guess." He's counting on the fact that bringing the dead back to life takes so much energy that it will leave him weak. Just as he keeps teasing, a hand suddenly grabs his face. S's eyes go wide with horror as a blade thrusts into his sword arm, and he screams from the agony. Then LRA's voice boils with fury, shouting, "You think murdering people is something to brag about? You crush Imperial people just to hold power that means nothing. For that, you even took my child away." S clenched his jaws, trying to stand up to the sharp pain. His eyes go wide with shock as Bandler kicks him in the gut, sending him crashing into the rubble. Even as blood pours from him, Soma sneers at her, calling her a monster and telling her to stop whining. He tries to convince himself that what he did was actually right for the Empire. Then LRA thought this whole thing was laughable, so by that twisted logic, your death today must be just as necessary, right? But he refuses to let her even feel sorry for him, saying not today. Suddenly, a huge column of blue light crashes down from the sky and catches Ben LRA completely by surprise. The lone beam shatters into dozens of sparks, bathing everything in crackling holy light, while a distant machine whirs to life with its 155 mana batteries fully charged and the shield against undead ready to strike. S grins through the blood and pain, knowing the mission is finally done. He shouts the command to bring up the barrier against the undead, and suddenly a giant mountain top bursts in a brilliant light, shaping a huge holy cross that explodes outward in a massive wave of power. A cleansing wave rushes over Benair's army and crashes directly into the undead soldiers. Each undead minion falls apart and fades away until there is nothing left. The human soldiers shout with joy as they celebrate their big win. As the undead fade away, S mocks Ben LRA, pointing out that the hero's party wizard built this unbeatable shield 120 years ago. As her body begins to crack and fall apart, Ben LRA calmly replies, "I know because she was right there, and let's just say her work is a strange kind of craftsmanship," leaving S looking completely puzzled. Then LRA doesn't fear because armies don't matter to him. He can just raise another one, and you have already created his next soldiers. The people your empire has hurt will all come to me to take revenge. She looked at him with glowing purple eyes and gave him her final promise that, together, they would bring the empire to its end. Before Benel sets out on her revenge mission, we need to understand why she's so angry, since she and her old group used to hate war. They recalled the harsh struggle where each day was a battle to stay alive and stealing was just a normal Tuesday. For a hot minute, when the hero was crowned, it felt like they'd finally won the game. But all that hope suddenly crumbled into a million tiny shards. Now, BR walks all by themselves, knowing that all that hard work was for nothing. She's totally lost and doubting every single quest they've ever taken on. With what brave heart did her past self march onto the battlefield? And who is she fighting to protect? In a time when her old friends aren't there to support her, she feels incredibly lost. For days after the hero was killed, we find ourselves in a snowy village far up north. A cloaked figure steps inside, and the little doorbell jingles to announce their arrival. The stranger stops to ask for directions, saying they got lost in the mountains. A local tough guy won't take it, snapping that this is an adventurer's guild, not a help desk. The hooded stranger with his face hidden claims this is the only spot still open, promising to bounce back once he gets the help he needs. As one guy tries to get up and start something, the first guy just waves him down. He's acting suspicious, sniffing that this traveler smells like blood and warning us about a nasty rumor of a necromancer who destroyed a nearby village. High up in the rafters, a cloaked figure stands perfectly still, waiting in the quiet. Suddenly, he lunges and fires a sharp blade right at the stranger. "Could it be they were talking about you?" he asked. The hood drops back to show a skull with a glowing purple eye. Ben LRA just snarls, telling the assassins they picked the wrong target to hunt. She blasts a shockwave, and when the smoke clears, the hidden assassin is already smashed on the floor. The adventurer spots the sneak attack coming and knows it won't work. He shouts the order, "Kill him," while Ben LRA sighs, wishing he'd just asked for directions instead. She snaps her knuckles and says, "Now it's on you," just as one of the assassins charges at her with a giant sword while screaming. Ben LR barely even flinched as he slipped right under that massive attack. She fires off an insanely fast series of moves, and then BM knocks him flat on his back. Suddenly, the second assassin lunges in. Then LRA catches the sword in one hand and yanks the guy by the throat. She uses her crazy strength to slam the man down onto the floor. "All right, let's move on to the next round." She easily turns to face the next wave. 2 more killers rush in, but Ben LR smoothly bounces their blades off one another. She grabs both of them by the head and slams their faces into the ground. The last adventurer stands frozen in shock as she vanishes from view, only to reappear right behind him, making him gasp in terror before he strikes back. Then, LRA reads the attack pattern instantly and sees that the right side thrust is just a trick. She slips past the blow and strikes back with a perfect hit of her own. Just then, a quiet voice fills the room and says, "That's enough." A scarred blonde man stands on the balcony above, calling off his dogs and offering Ben Lur whatever she desires. Tor Vinland steps forward and tells everyone he's the guild master for the whole northern land. He smiles, inviting them to move the talk to his office for a moment of privacy. Inside, Tor shares a silly ghost story about a skeleton on the mountain behind Chongtap village that keeps scaring all the brave travelers who climb it. He claimed the guild sent out search teams, yet since they came back empty-handed, he just laughed it off as an old story. But now, with a real skeleton sitting on his couch, he just has to laugh because the rumor was actually true. Then LRA stops laughing, tightens her fist until the chair arm breaks, and says she's not here to relax. Her purple eyes flash with impatience as she demands he get straight to the point. Suddenly, Tor's playful mood vanishes, his face hardening as he tells her his request is straightforward. He takes out a pack of cigarettes and explains that even though the guild belongs to the Empire, they have been left completely out of the loop. He flicks on the cigarette and lays out the dark truth they face. Everyone is just sitting around waiting to get torn apart by monsters. Ben LRA isn't impressed. "So you're whining to me about your situation?" She coldly snaps at Tor that they should have fought back against the Empire, because if you do nothing, you get nothing. They took a long drag on his cigarette, proving that we weren't doing nothing. He explained that they had pinned their hopes on the hero to save them. But he admits they were just holding on to a dream that led them nowhere. He wonders where everything went wrong until he looks at Ben LRA, and suddenly it all makes sense. The only thing we were missing was hate. He has stopped worrying about tomorrow and is ready to die if it means taking his enemies down with him, because that is just how war works. Filled with a new determination, Tor goes to the skeleton in his office and makes his request. He immediately promises the 2 adventurers and pledges that the guild will back them with everything they need going forward. He doesn't care if Ben LRA is a demon or a devil. He stares straight into his eyes and begs, "Please let all of us join your war." But Ben LRA stays silent. Then she apologizes for wrecking the guild, admitting it's her fault for letting the Empire neglect them for so long. She says it's been 150 years since she accepted a request, and then tosses 2 red tags onto the table. He stares in shock at the ID of a ruby rank adventurer, a legendary title from the Great War that has long been forgotten. He stares at the tiny skeleton on his couch and shouts, "Who are you?" Ben Ayer laughs and says, "Don't worry, I'm just an ugly ghost from the past," then agrees to lead them to the first stop, the biggest and baddest mountain range on the continent. "We're heading to the northern mountains," she said, meaning a very long journey from where she began. 5 days into their journey, a scout reports that they're tearing through the snowy northern mountains at a breakneck speed. All you need to do is stay hidden from the Imperial soldiers patrolling the area. Then LRA seemed to like how fast things were going. Looking down from the cliff, she spots a big trouble and wonders, who are those guys? Her guide suspects the soldiers aren't hunting them, but have simply gotten lost. They're totally unprepared for the cold mountain winter since they don't even have the right gear. Ben LRA asks the guide about the path below, and while the guide names Moran and Sam, he warns Ben LRA to at least try to remember the name of the third guy who wields a sword. Mirren answers the question, revealing that the path leads to small houses which those soldiers will definitely raid for loot. Sword Harrier sighs in bitterness as he notes that since the new emperor took the throne, the Imperial Knights have been going wild. When Penra gave a simple answer that froze my blood, I knew I had no choice but to end their life. Her new friends stare in shock as she casually leaps off the cliff, causing a massive explosion that blasts the camp below and sends soldiers flying everywhere. The soldiers are in chaos, and as Benler confirms their worst fear, it's clear an enemy is attacking. Sword Harrier is screaming at Ben LRA for wanting to die, while Mirren just stares blankly since the guy is already dead. As the soldiers look down and finally recognize the evil necromancer from Chang'an Village, she leaps into their ranks and unleashes a slash of purple energy that tears through their armor like it were paper. A female knight shouts to her soldiers that she is alone against Ben LRA, but her cold eyes show them that the truth is far more dangerous. In an instant, she is on top, her blade slicing cleanly through both the knight and his horse. She lifts the cut-off head and laughs at her final order. Just one. Are those eyes meant to be used, or are they just pretty to look at? Right behind her, a whole army of screaming purple ghosts suddenly pops out of nowhere. Standing on the cliff, Harrier realizes that the incredible power Ben Lyra displayed at the guild was just the warm-up, not the real deal. A ghostly army screams as it falls upon the defenseless troops, while she rides a demonic purple horse, and Ben Lyra watches the total chaos she has created. The two guides stand frozen, wide-eyed and speechless as they gaze at the ghost of Chung Village. Now that the fight is almost done, Mirren says it's time for Sword Harrier to head down. Ben Lyra sits calmly on his ghostly horse. A ghostly queen looks down on her blood-soaked win. The very last soldier is quickly swarmed and crushed by the ghosts. One last night, he gathers all his bravery and rushes forward. He slices right off the horse's head. In one fluid move, Ben Lyra jumps from her horse and kicks the soldier right in the head. A bright gold medallion hangs from the soldier's neck. That shiny badge suddenly brings a forgotten memory rushing back. Back at the guild, Master Vinland handed her a matching one as a sorry for the trouble. He told him the safe return charm was handmade by his own daughter just for adventurers. Ben LRA nodded with a grateful smile and told her to pass on my thanks, only to drop some heavy news right after. 2 years ago, when Ben LRA offered his sympathy for his daughter's death at the hands of the Imperial Army, Tor simply waved it away. He told them that everyone in the room had lost someone dear to them, just like him, making them all feel exactly the same. He told Ben LRA that chasing revenge would only ruin her life, just as it had done before. Everyone has someone waiting for them, so don't wander off too far, skeleton. His words stick in Ben's mind, and she finally stops fighting. Suddenly, a terrible cracking noise ripped through the air. A soldier gets stabbed by one of her own friends. As the soldier's life slipped away, he could only whisper, "I'm sorry," a final, desperate plea to his daughter, Michelle. Ben Lyra trembles as she looks at her creation and smashes it apart. As the ghostly figure fades away, the Sword Harrier moves in to catch it. He asks Ben LRA to rest while they finish cleaning up and prepare the fresh corpses for her army. Ben LRA just stands there in silence while a dark, blood-like liquid drips from her tightly clenched fist. After a while, a huge fire burns while Sword Harrier stares at their new boss, wondering, what a strange man. Ben LRA wants them to burn the bodies instead of turning them into monsters. And LRA stands all by himself, watching the huge funeral pyre. Mirren sees Ben LRA from afar and realizes he looks heartbreakingly sad. As she watches the flames, a dark, familiar voice slips into her mind. The voice mocks her, saying, "I told you it was your turn, didn't I?" It tells her that she will have to keep making hard choices and end up feeling even more hopeless. But before it could finish, Ben L cut it off, telling the vision of the Demon King to shut up and stay quiet in the afterlife since he was already dead. The creature lets out a scary, evil laugh. It sneers back at her, making you wonder if she truly thinks she's still alive. It promises a kind of despair even he can't imagine waiting for her at the end. Then the vision vanishes, leaving Ben LRA standing alone with its terrifying words. At the same time, far away in the Empire, a rider gallops toward a fortress still smoking from the war. Fry, a red-haired woman perched on the wall, savors the atmosphere while finding the screams of the dying delicious. She flashes a terrifying shark-tooth grin while the smell of burning feels strangely nice. A huge knight turns to Lord Fry and asks if she wants to join the men in a game of soccer where they bet on the princess's head. Fry shrugs off the offer with a yawn, since the kingdom fell so easily that it was simply boring. She wonders if there is anyone left crazy enough to pick a fight with the Empire. Just as things get ready to turn, a messenger drops by to tell War Knight Fry. He shouts out a fresh order because a huge army of the dead has shown up in the north, and they are hunting down the evil necromancer who leads them. When Fry hears the news, a slow, wicked grin creeps across his face. Her eyes sparkle with joy because her wish has come true, and a real madman has finally shown up. She jumps off the wall and shouts her orders. Bring the troops together. High in the cold, empty northern peaks, Ben LRA quietly guides his new crew across the endless snow. After 2 weeks of total silence, one of her escorts finally snaps, complaining that Ben LRA hasn't said a single word. He complains that the ride feels like traveling with a dead body, while his friend is totally confused about how that skeleton's head is just floating in mid-air, completely breaking the rules of physics. So how do we get here? Let's rewind the clock to the guild, where Tor Vinland shares his theory. The undead comes from Spear Tower Village and is probably tied to the hero who just passed away. He joins the dots and sees that the time when heroes were hunted by knights lines up perfectly with the undead army's attack. But the biggest clue is that the undead are fighting in a perfect copy of the hero's stance, so the mystery is solved. Hearing this, Mirren realizes the skeleton isn't a monster, but just as desperate as them. Tor decides that even though Ben LRA isn't a friend, she is their only hope to defeat the Empire, so he sends 2 brave souls to lead her. Since Miran Same and Sword Harrier were both from the north, he chose them to lead Ben-Aur on the way. Sword Harrier wasn't convinced, but Tor just slid him a scroll with a reassuring grin, saying not to worry because he felt this one was going to work out just fine. Time jumps to now, where Sword Harrier nervously asks, Mr. Undead, sir, is that direction? Ben LRA turns slightly and finally says, yes, Spear Tower Village. I'll stop by there for a bit. Hearing the village name wakes up a memory of the young hero playfully putting a paper bag over his head. She dragged her through the busy streets of her hometown, a place that used to be full of life. They're even welcomed by a friendly host who offers them a drink. Inside, Ben LRA somehow throws a perfect bullseye with his darts, sending the whole tavern into a frenzy as they hoist her up like a champion. Once the spot was filled with warmth and laughter. For Ben Lyra, that bright memory is now just a dark, broken silence where he sits all alone. She holds his hands on the table, but suddenly a mug slams down right in front of her. She lifts her eyes and sees the innkeeper, an older woman with scars on her face, but she is still standing there. She apologizes, explaining that the inn has been shut down for so long they no longer use that fancy bread bag. Then LRA sees her and is completely stunned. She wonders how anyone could possibly know about the bag. She takes a sip and says she's heard plenty of stories. You're the little kid who used to work here as a teacher, right? She lifted the bottle named DNI, a cheap drink that signaled new beginnings, only to discover the kid had secretly left it for her before she even left. Adventurers used to share a drink to wish for a safe journey, but no one has sold any in a long time, leaving us to wonder why. With no brave souls left in the village, the path is silent. The innkeeper knows why Ben Lyra jumped up, but warns her that the plan she's hatching now is wrong. She asks Ben LRA a simple question. Can she save the Empire, or has this monstrous new form betrayed the person she taught him to be? I don't think so, but the innkeeper keeps talking, setting things down in front of her, while saying that your student thought you could have been a bit brighter. She points to the things on the table, and the innkeeper nods, saying, yes, she asked me to give this to you, leaving Ben LRA completely stunned. She opens the journal to find pages covered in childish drawings of a timeless fairy tale. Gathering allies, saving lives, and defeating the great evil, just as the legendary Red Jade adventurers and their party did more than 100 years ago. The words, I hope to have a fairy tale adventure one day, and I want to have it with you, ring in her mind as she downs her drink and suddenly understands she was on the wrong path, blinded by anger, until Ben Lyra whispers, kid, everyone says I'm your teacher, but I'm the one who's learning here. She stands up to go, says thanks for the drink, and the innkeeper asks where she's heading. Are you a new beginning? She asks, and now that I've had a drink, Ben LRA says it's time for me to go. The kid's final wish was to go on an adventure with her, so now she's setting off not for revenge, but to join her on that quest. As Ben Lyra steps out of the pub, Mirren talks about their next route getting cold, while everyone jokes that Ben is just a bag of bones who won't feel the chill anyway. Ben bursts out laughing and says, all right, my incompetent juniors, leaving the guides completely stunned by the sudden shift in the mood. Sword Harrier wonders if Ben LRA's angry mood is finally going to end. He still remembers the guildmaster in Vinland giving him this mission with a confident smile. The Harrier's size proved that the old man had an eagle eye for talent after all. With that, they scrambled to catch up to Ben LRA, who had already left them far behind. As they traveled down the road, Harrier stops for a quick lesson on the different ranks adventurers can hold. 10 levels rise from the ground up to the diamond. Reaching a higher rank brings more cash, but you're stuck skipping the low-level quests. Most folks stop at the 7th rank of Topaz, but anyone who breaks past that limit is called a superhuman. The best players either venture into unknown lands, stand strong against endless waves of monsters, or command the Imperial armies. He says you gotta be stronger than these weak goblins to kill them. And the folks brave enough to take down giants like this Cyclops are just middle-tier adventurers. As he talks, Mirren springs into the air and takes down the Cyclops with style. Finally, Harrier points to a massive pile of dead monsters, proving that a powerful warrior caused this terrible carnage. He gets annoyed and asks if you're even listening, but LRA just shrugs and says yes, then asks about your rank, prompting Mirren to puff out her chest proudly to reveal that you're both 5th-tier Topaz mages. Then LRA scratched her head in confusion, wondering how the ranking rules had changed so much since her time. Harrier looks stunned, realizing you are an adventurer, and then LRA casually mentions she holds a Ruby rank, wondering if that title still means anything. Ruby's name feels familiar to Harrier, but he still can't quite figure out where he's heard it before. Mirren erupts in laughter at the fairy tale rank, realizing with a start that she's just pressed the wrong button. Then LRA's voice sinks low, whispering the words, "My undead army." Mirren's laughter suddenly stops, leaving her staring in confusion. Just as they thought they were safe, the 3 giant, ghostly monsters they killed suddenly burst out of the ground and roar down at them. Then LRA just casually says, "Oh, I can do this too," making them dance, and Harrier immediately begs him to make them disappear. Ben L chuckles and yells for them to come back, laughing that they are just scaredy cats. She then says that to a northerner, Mirren has the guts of a flea. For a moment, her mood softens and she remembers her old party, her true friends, and the joy he shared with his student, realizing it was exactly like this. Mirren breaks the quiet and asks why he's walking into the monster-filled northern mountains. Benler says she has promises to keep and things to find, so she must move on. She admits she once intended to lead the Demon King's forces against the Empire, but that entire army was wiped out by this guy. Harrier couldn't believe it was even possible. Lara explains that the barrier wasn't just any wall, but a special one built by a mage from the hero's party. Harrier figured it all out, realizing that they actually need a human army. Yep, she's trying to get the people from the north to become her friends. They're horrified at the thought of making allies with those furry psychos, and Harrier mutters that if they succeed, it'll be a continental super army. Ben LRA strikes a pose, having changed her mind from cutting off the Emperor's head after her disciple talked her out of it. Mirren stands frozen in shock as Ben LRA announces her new plan. Instead of tearing the Empire apart, she intends to build it up properly. Noticing the heavy mood, LRA then decides to change the subject. She didn't mince words, telling them they let the hunt fail and ran away. So now, what's left to do? She smirks and says she'll give them a break on the long trip, so bring it on. Harrier gets jittery, so let's head out, okay? Suddenly, Benler's aura bursts with power, and feeling bold, she asks ominously, "From now on, we're playing a little game." Her voice turns into a scary whisper that tells you to run. A huge spectral monster appears right in front of them, and I'll give you 10 seconds to get ready. Harrier panics, screaming that they never provoked her and calling her completely crazy. He shouts for more Anne, but she's already left, which shows just how loyal a true friend she is. Mirren is already running away, but we'll meet again, Harrier. Venler's countdown happens in a dizzying blur. "Time's up," she shouts, but the beast roars and lunges, forcing Harrier to run for his life. While she watches them suffer, her mind wanders to the ones she has already lost. Even though they are gone, the memory of them is what keeps her going. And she lets out a small laugh. She bursts into wild laughter while riding the beast, laughing at her clueless second batch of disciples she never wanted. She screams, "Be grateful. I'm training you personally so you won't end up useless," while the giant beast keeps tearing through the forest, chasing the 2 terrified adventurers. Now LRA's true strength shines through. For this time she won't get lost, and will protect them, so she can finally live as herself instead of just being a shadow of the Demon King. High up on a nearby mountain, a hidden watcher sees the smoke from the explosion rising into the sky. She giggles, "I found you. So, let's get back to our little training session." A huge monster is being chased through the woods. The Harrier nearly gets blown away by a shockwave, sending him flying. He's screaming with all his might, certain this is his very last chance to come back to life. But then, a flash of red zooms right by him. She is a woman with blazing red hair and a mighty sword. And folks, she's got a grin that's meant for a good time, not a long one. The beast shoots a laser, but she's so fast on her feet, she barely gets hit. She cuts the beam right down the middle as easily as opening a pair of scissors. Before you could blink, she was hanging upside down right in Ben LRA's face, saying, "Hey there," and leaving him totally shocked by her sudden appearance. He barely manages to block her huge blade with his strange sword. Ben L throws up a whirlwind that blasts her straight into the sky. But she isn't finished. She twists through the air to land a devastating crash on the dragon's spine. Sitting on the sidelines, Mirren can only scream for Mr. Skull to help. Ben LRA bounces down to the ground without a scratch, muttering about how rude an ambush like that really is. She just snarls back at you and demands to know who you are. She steps forward and tells them her name is Fry, ready to meet the phantom of Speartop villages. It turns out she is Fry of War, one of the Empire's legendary Four Knights, and she has arrived to fight. Ben LRA knows that title from an old chat we had. Now that the introductions are done, Fry is ready to fight, and Ben LRA accepts the challenge. They rush forward, and the very first impact sends a huge shock wave crashing out. Fry grins and twists with surprising ease, slipping past Ben LRA's wild swings without a scratch. Ben Lyra lunges forward, but Fry uses her own arm like a springboard to vault right over her. Then she swings the huge sword down from the sky with all her might. In a crazy rush, Ben LRA throws his forearms up to catch the sharp blade. Fry hits her stride immediately, sending her flying back into the dirt. Fry believes Ben LRA is a strange opponent because his movements look completely unnatural. Then LRA's inner thoughts are much simpler, just thinking how nasty the human being is. Suddenly, she throws a tiny piece of rock straight at Frey's eyes. Then she throws down a wild flurry of blows, but Fry just lets out a booming laugh. The last kick launches her soaring across the battlefield. Fry stands right back up and calls the fight boring, which makes him the toughest critic of all. She scolds Ben LRA for getting distracted by her little runs before promising to bury them altogether. Ben stares at his bony hands and says, "You're killing me." She admits Fry is strong and a true warrior built by hard work. But she says, "Your fatal flaw is your poor eyesight," and Fry just curses while wondering if the skeleton just figured out her weakness. A huge shadow monster suddenly explodes out of the earth, right under her feet. After LRA screams for her crew to toss her a sword and shouts one last order, a huge red explosion tears through the entire forest. They jump onto the smoke-belching spectral beast in a classic Lara Croft escape. She happily shares her smoke bomb recipe made of chilies and powdered turtle shell, leaving Harrier absolutely unamused. Mirren is panicking, knowing that not even an entire army could defeat one of the Four Knights. Ben LRA just quietly admits that she probably can't stop that crazy man either. She points to a marker to say they've crossed a line, but it's already too late since their enemy has caught up despite their plan to run and make noise. Fry screams with laughter, wondering if this is some kind of undead army, because to her, this is a real war. Soldiers rush at the beast, while Mayer yells at Mr. Skeleton to act. Then LRA gears up and declares she is bringing her northern style. Sitting right across from her, Fry begins to shape her own unique spiral. As their powerful final blows crash together, the giant's costly twist meets the mad dog's bloody ending. The collision sends a massive shockwave ripping through the land, exploding with such force that the nearby mountains shake. Down in the crater, Fry laughs at the monster, the smoke bombs, and the strange sword fighting, thinking it's finally getting fun. Her fighting fire is burning so bright now. "Aren't there more of you to face, Mr. Skeleton?" Ben LR, it just sits up, grumbling about the dust, and how dare you dirty a lady's clothes like this. Fry scoffs back at the lady who can't even see herself in a mirror, sparking a trash talk battle that Frank suddenly takes seriously by asking why she isn't using her undead army. Only for her to be disappointed by Ben and LRA's distractions before a dark thought crosses her mind about killing them to go all out, but Ben yells at her for getting too close to an enemy, causing her to blush with a crazed grin and taunt his arrogance before her face hardens and she leans in to whisper that she's going to crush his head. Before she could move, a storm of arrows suddenly fell from the sky. For Fry, a handful of arrows stuck in his shoulder is just a small annoyance. Ben LRA smirks and asks, "Was that Fry?" before telling them to honor the Mother Mountain as they step into dangerous ground. A dark smile spreads across Frey's face as she finally understands. She couldn't figure out why Ben LRA had walked all the way to the front yard of the northern tribe. She sneers that she dragged them all this way just for such a cheap trick. Fry pledges to wait however long it takes while you go ahead and butter them up. Frey's eyes sparkle with wild joy as he thinks this war is the funniest thing ever and challenges Mr. Undead to bring on whatever they want. Then LRA had only one thought. This woman was completely mad. Suddenly, Sword Harrier and Neuron dash to her side in relief, while Moran points out the archers. Ben looks a little embarrassed and admits she almost forgot about them. She spins around and happily thanks the northern tribe for their help. But her friendly welcome gets ruined instantly when an arrow shoots right through her hand instead of her knee. Up in the trees, a hooded archer who is actually a talking skeleton laughs and jokes about drinking liquor from his own skull. Then Lara just looks blank-faced, which Mirren and Harrier know is exactly who they are, so they nod in full agreement. Without saying another word, the northern tribesmen jump from the trees and rush straight at them. Time to run, as a tribesman screams, "Intruder detected," while Mirren panics and yells at Ben Lyra that he forgot their century-old agreement. Ben Lyra advises dropping Moran's name to stay safe, but she insists they can't hide from Harrier, who has a dangerous past, and right on cue, a shower of arrows pins him down. Looks like she has to use her own name, so she stomps the ground, raises a hand, and roars, "Don't move. My name is Ben LRA Edwards," I said to the skeptical northern tribe, and I asked to speak with your chieftain, but the men only laughed, seeing right through my bony disguise to the skeleton hiding beneath. Ben LRA flashes a peace sign, convinced he's finally fixed everything. Here's the news. It just doesn't. Now they're stuck behind heavy iron bars. Harrier is so mad he's sarcastically thanking Ben LRA for tossing them into the cell. She hits him right on the head. Miran questions if she truly belongs to the tribe, while Ben LRA looms over a knocked-out figure. And when Harrier snaps awake in a panic, he realizes they are in Red Sheep Village, and they are in big trouble. He begins to panic, screaming that their job was only to lead Ben LRA to the entrance, never touch him. The heavy cell door slammed open, and a guard shouted that the chieftain wanted to speak with Ben LRA. Chained together, the three are forced to trudge through the snow-covered village. Ben LRA says the place looks just like it did before. They walk into a huge arena where the fighters are all tired and broken. A voice calls out to ask if he is the undead who can speak. Red Silk, the chieftain of the Red Sheep tribe, sitting on a stone throne, sneers at Ben Lur, saying, "You've got some nerve pretending to be a northern tribesman." His eyes snap to Moran and Harrier, glaring at them and shouting how nerve they have to wait right there. Ben Lur is convinced she's telling the truth and wants to be untied so they can talk it through. But Red Silk won't have it, and he's furious that Ben Lur brought along failures who can't even call themselves tribesmen. Ben Lur answers, "You mean the ones who failed the Great Hunt and are still treated like outcasts?" Nothing has changed, before she smashes the stocks with a force that shatters them. Red Silk snatches his cloak and yells at the undead, ignoring a warrior who tries to stop him as his fury boils over at the annoying skeleton. Then LRA's eye glows a terrifying purple, and she mocks you, asking if your skin will change too. Red Silk snaps, and that is the final break. With twin axes flying and a loud roar, the chieftain tries to crush Ben LRA's friends, but Ben easily blocks the force, shattering the stocks instead. Mirren looks at her now free hands after snapping the shackles, while Ben Lur calmly tells both of them to step back. Red Silk swings his axe blade attack wildly, but Ben LRA just dances through the blows like they aren't even hitting him. Mirren stands amazed, realizing that while the chieftain is mighty, the skeleton moves with a power that defies belief. Ben LRA moves so fast she slaps away every hard hit with her bare hands. The crowd could only scream as Ben LRA easily turn away every single attack. She swirls past a huge swing and breaks the stone floor where she was just standing. Panting and furious, Red Silk growls, "Is that all you've got?" Then LRA stops and calmly closes his fist, saying no. She lets out one powerful blow that bursts with energy. The chieftain mocks her, sneering that she is too light. "Duh, yeah, I'm just a skeleton." Then Red Silk lands a solid punch that sends Ben LRA flying. Red Silk laughs and says the dead should just stay buried and turn to dust. But before you could blink, he's down on his knees, totally confused. His body froze solid as he realized Ben LRA had struck a hidden spot that left him unable to move. When LRA finishes speaking, he says the dead should turn to dust while the living remember them and keep moving forward, a lesson she has heard 1,000 times before. She turns the tables by asking why the living chieftain kneels while the dead one stands tall, glowing with a scary purple light, as Ben LRA moves toward the warrior who can't move. She creates a huge energy blade and towers over him, saying, "All right, leader the Red Sheep, now let's talk." Red Silk is so beaten up that he gives up and asks Ben LRA what she wants. Ben Lur's message is clear: bring the northern tribes together, for they are marching to war against the Empire. Just as Harrier and Moran charge in, the beaten Red Silk laughs and agrees to the order. He agrees to call the Great Council and summon Ben Luro when the time is right, but since he doesn't trust her, he orders everyone to wait at Harrier's mansion until the meeting begins. Lyra looks puzzled, wondering how Harrier could own such a grand mansion. Red Silk is stunned to see you wandering into Red Sheep's land without a clue about the danger. You mean that kid never told you? And Sword Harrier just grins awkwardly in the background? Red Silk snorts at the absurdity and gestures toward a huge, snow-blanketed mansion. He shows that the building belongs to the guide, Sword Harrier Hawker, by pointing out their clan symbol on the wall. The same symbol is inked on Harrier's arm, proving he's not just any ally but the heir to the legendary White Lion tribe. And here is his crib, a huge mansion sitting right in the middle of the snowy Northern Territory, proving that the whole broke guide thing was just a fake front. Then LRA absolutely adores watching the scruffy Harrier try to act polite, which is just hilarious. Harrier looks like he'd rather be anywhere else, having essentially run away from his family and wishing this place had never existed. Yep, he hates this place, so he tells them he's hiding in his room if they need him for anything. Then Luro says he feels like a totally different person, and Min agrees, before they meet a scarred older man who introduces himself as the mansion's caretaker and Van Sun. It just so happens that Van Sun and Murin are already old friends. He asks how she's been, and she gives a pretty vague answer. Van Sun points out that even though Murin acts like Harrier's friend, she is really just the gardener's daughter, which makes her a servant. He then confirms the big news. Harrier is truly the next chief, having only studied with the Red Sheep tribe for a short time. Van Sun says Harrier was sent to grind experience in a place perfect for learning because constant territorial wars were happening there. After Harrier failed the Great Hunt again and again, he lost his confidence and went AFK with Murin 4 years ago. While all the other servants went back to their tribes, Van Sun was left to care for the huge, empty mansion by himself. When Banner asks why he stayed, Van Sun grins broadly and jokes that he couldn't let the house get dusty before his master returned. Just then Ben Lura understands that Van Sun and Murin never abandoned Harrier, and the entire tribe has been holding out hope for him all along. Later, Ben LRA spots Murin outside, tending to flowers, and she tells him it's a family tradition. Murin admits Harrier would have made a great chief, but there was a real reason she left with him. So folks, get ready for the flashback. The story begins with her dad, a gardener named Post, who sees a young Murin being brought before the chief. The boss, Reman Russ Hawker, who is also Harrier's mom, is truly the best. She sits on her throne with a huge white lion pelt resting casually behind her. Reman thinks the mountain brought them here and invites them to live with her tribe. Young Moran vows to pay back the kindness shown to her, while the shy Harrier is asked to show her around. Their very first meeting felt just a bit awkward. As they trudge through the snow, Harrier finally introduces himself. Murin hands him a treat on a stick. He thought he was getting a present, but then he saw it was just a stick covered in goat poop and went crazy. Murin flashes a cheeky grin and finally introduces herself properly. Harrier, completely flustered, awkwardly tries to act bossy. Murin just stared at him, wondering if his rank really mattered. She asks what matters more than just having a good time. Harrier stands frozen with no words, but Murin just calls him a dummy, grabs his hand, and drags him away. Suddenly, they find themselves sprinting across the fields, joyfully pursuing a huge, panicked boar. Harrier sees the other kids watching them. Murin doesn't miss a beat and proudly introduces him as her new friend. For the very first time, Harrier finally feels like he's got some real friends. Murin never treated him differently, ignoring the fact that he was the chief's son. She didn't let his title or rank blind her to who he really was. For a kid like Harrier, just catching a glimpse of him was the whole world. Years later, Harrier and Murin are older and relaxing together in a field. Harrier wonders if he can truly live up to the legacy his mother left behind. He confesses that he is scared to leave and go learn with the other tribe. Murin tells him to chill out, reminding him that everyone else feels the same way. Every single member of the White Lion Tail tribe trusts him completely. Harrier finally reaches the Red Lamb tribe and is welcomed by his new teacher, the very same Chief Red Silk. Red Silk vows to train Harrier into a true future chief, and the lessons are harsh because a leader must never lose, so it's time to grind those strength stats. Next comes the hard part of learning to read the battlefield and make life or death choices in a split second. Next, Harrier is trapped in a library and forced to devour more than 2,000 books on history, law, and monsters. The endless grinding pushes him right to the edge. He's literally so tired from his books that he's bleeding. With blood running down his nose and his body pushed to the breaking point, Harrier begins to wonder if he can possibly survive this. But the thought of Min's smile is just enough to give him the boost he needs. With fresh fire in his heart, he throws himself back into his studies and refuses to quit. After a year of grueling training, they finally got the terrible news. While Mirin tells her tale of Harrier running away, a lone figure creeps toward the village. He is the only one left from his group, now saying sorry to the spirits of his friends who died. He is so ashamed that he believes Valhalla itself has turned him away forever. The heavy weight of being the sole survivor is crushing him down hard. Yep, the Empire's cursed wolves have finally crashed the party. Every kid in the Empire grew up hearing tales of the hero and his friends slaying the Demon King. Just like everyone else, this kid drank in every word Harrier said. He looked up to his legendary mother, a fierce warrior, and the loyal soldiers who stood by her side. Young Harrier dreamed of becoming a real hero, just like them, someone who truly belonged to the people. He poured all his hopes and dreams into his training, betting his entire future on the sharpness of his blade. But we all know how this ends, a broken boy with a shattered sword. So, right after Harrier bolted, Mirin decided to chase after him. Ban Sun calls her foolish for stepping into the blizzard, but she ignores his pleas and simply says, "I know," before walking out into the storm by herself. She has decided exactly what she wants. She must track down her friend, no matter what it takes. And she discovers him drowning his sorrows in a tavern, with a bottle at the bottom of his glass. Mirin steps into the doorway and reminds you that becoming an adventurer might not be such a bad idea after all. He looks up and calls her name, but she is so angry that she shouts that he's a terrible, awful person. She presses him for the truth about why he ran, but his excuse doesn't fit his character at all. He just laughs, admitting he has no talent or qualifications to lead. She won't take any of that. Min steps up, yanks him by his collar, and pulls him in. "You wanted to be chieftain more than anything. Who could say no to that?" she shouts. He just says, "My teachers." He failed the Great Hunt trial 4 times in a row, never managing to pass even once. He admits he has no talent for fighting, magic, or special tricks, claiming he is just ordinary. All he had was his gut feeling, and because of that, people call him a loser over and over again. He tells her that she cannot understand the heavy weight of failing everyone again and again. She wonders if running away was the right choice, while he claims that at least here he can finally breathe, even as she challenges him on whether this is truly who he wanted to be, leaving them both lost in thoughts of the hero he once dreamed of becoming. 2 years later, the sun rises over the adventurers' village. Now they are full-time adventurers who take on quests from nearby villages. Harrier, now a shield brother, tells Mirin, "Let's go," and she agrees, seeing that his old fire is returning even though he looks like himself again. She stayed by his side for 2 full years, praying he would get better. But they never talked about the village at all. But she sees he still wears his tribe's shield, which means there's still a chance for hope. All of a sudden, the whole building starts to tremble. That was the day Ben LRA walked into their lives. After the memory fades, Mirin says that once she met Ben LRA, she spotted the old Harrier all over again. Mirin tries to show what Harrier can do, even though she isn't very good with words. She suddenly gets serious and asks if Ben LRA will really train him, even if he was just joking. Ben LRA claims he's talented, but his old mentor is holding him back. Mirin nods, knowing Ben LRA already understands exactly what Harrier needs. Back at the mansion, Harrier is just relaxing when someone knocks on the door. But instead of an answer, a fist bursts straight through the wood. Harrier jumps back in pure shock, not knowing what is going on. It turns out he needs a teacher to smash down his walls, right down to the bricks. "Let's go train," as Benler leans over the hole, his glowing eye sockets staring out. Harrier lets out a terrified scream, while Benler casually drags him off to train. Benler smiles as he sets the first rule: never stop moving until you're dead. Harrier is panicking because he's sure she heard his sad story, only for her to smash her knuckles into his head and scold him for talking too much. Ben Luro can't even imagine how he heard them, while Mirin just laughs and says Harrier has amazing hearing. LRA gives a thumbs up to show that this training is for real. She looks down at the knocked-out Harrier and admits, "I've grown fond of this idiot," while Mirin just giggles to herself, finding the whole thing surprisingly cute. Ben LRA is left baffled by her reaction, while Harrier keeps mumbling to herself on the pavement. A bit later, Ben LRA and Moran are meeting with Chief Red Silk, who is asking where Harrier is. Ben LRA is coolly backing away while I teach him a few things, so don't worry. The boss isn't having any of this. He mocks Harrier for being a coward who quit training, but but you're just blind to his true strength and can't see what he can actually do. All the chief could do was growl in return, calling him a freaking skull. Suddenly, the heavy doors burst open and a guard screams wildly to get the chief's attention. The chief, fed up with the loud noise, grumbles and demands to know who is making all the racket. A gatekeeper rushes in shouting that they've found a survivor from the coastal defense. A beaten blonde warrior falls to her knees, pleading for the chief to strike the Empire so she can meet her end with honor. The chief, sitting with Ben LRA and Moran, puts a stop to the attack, explaining that starting a fight right now would mean a full-scale war and terrible loss of life. He tells the defender to get back to his spot and stop fighting for no reason. The warrior shatters apart right before your eyes, and you can't help but wonder if the fury you feel is enough to save us from drowning at the coast. Then LRA asks who this man is, and the chief confirms he is the only one left from the coast. The survivor explains that the Empire's army sprung a deadly trap that wiped out countless veteran defenders. The Emperor has been non-stop sending troops north. But for the moment, the tribes can only hold their ground and wait for the other side to move. For folks along the coast, it feels like they're still trapped in the middle of a war. Here, the ground is so soaked with blood that even giving your friends a grave is a luxury you can't afford. After the meeting, Ben LRA and Min step outside where Min tells him she's been accepted as a northern warrior. Then LRA tells her she already has everything needed: the smarts, the hard work, and most of all, the perfect experience. She then calls her out on pretending to fail the Great Hunt because of Harrier. Miran gets a bit flustered and asks about Harrier, and Benler explains that Harrier is holding himself back because of his own shame and the heavy weight of being the chief's son. But Ben LRA, a true warrior, insists that the most vital stat is having the heart of a fighter. She remembers that this skill can't be learned in a classroom, but must be hammered into shape by life's hardest lessons. She must remember that her past life was spent training countless warriors just like them. She believes that's her fate to share old wisdom, and promises Miran she will wake up Harrier's hidden power. Next time Harrier steps onto a battlefield, he'll finally show the true hero he was meant to be, proving he wasn't a failure during the Great Hunt. 7 days later, Fry stands in the snow at the foot of the northern mountains, screaming at her 2 giant armored knights for eating it, but they just don't care because it tastes delicious. Then, in walked the very knight of war himself, Izur Soma. He instantly starts making fun of Fry for hanging out with her dumb friends. As Fry holds her knights steady, one of them drops a wild plan: smear blood on the snow to trick Strawberry Bing Su, leaving his partner completely amazed by his genius move. Fry cuts straight to the point, wondering if has traveled all this way just to take back the 4th Knight title. He laughs it off, saying he has no time to waste because he must deal with the necromancer, while S wonders why she isn't leading her army into the mountains instead of just hanging around. She just smirks, letting him know he's the only one who can make her laugh. S calls her pathetic and stares dramatically into the distance. He's the kind of man who never waits around. He tells his soldiers to get ready to strike, sending the 4th platoon out to check the ground first. The cavalry rides hard toward the northern mountains. With a dark grin, S vows, "Wait for me, necromancer. I'll make you pay for ripping my face off," while back at the northern camp, Ben Lyra checks in on the chief. The chieftain's face turns dark as the Imperial army rolls into the mountains. He says this isn't just a simple raid. A huge force is rushing in from the coast, trying to rip the mountains apart. Messengers have been sent, but they won't make it in time. The ambush on the coast was only the beginning, and now, with eyes burning with pure rage, he declares that this is war against the Empire. Suddenly, Ben Lyra shouts, "Red Sheep Tribe, clear the way. I'm going in," as chaos erupts on the battlefield, and a northern berserker lets out a savage roar before leaping onto the shields with his axe high. From the ridge above, Ben-Aur catches the sharp smell of blood, realizing the cycle has turned again and they have landed on another battlefield. She has walked through many battles before, but something feels different deep inside her now. She has finally decided to stop running from her duty, now carrying all their hopes on her shoulders. Just then, the injured defender from before dragged himself up the hill, shouting that he was coming. He won't even step into the medic's tent while the fight is still going, saying it's just as good as being dead. Benler sees him and asks him to calm down, but the warrior shouts that Ben LRA is trying to stop him. Then Luro wouldn't dare, for she only asks if you dream of revenge for your fallen friends. He answers that he seeks no revenge for his fallen friends, for they were the proud guardians of the Red Sheep Tribe who kept the coast safe, and he is ashamed that he failed them. So now he will fight until the job is done. Then LRA was impressed and asked a question. What if they could bring the honorable dead back from the grave to fight one more battle? The defender shakes in horror, whispering that bringing the dead back isn't a noble act, but a dangerous magic. But then his friends stood as brave protectors for the Red Lamb tribe. If there is any reason to wake those who have found rest, it would be when their land is being invaded again. LRA gets it immediately, holds out her hand, and asks, "If that's true, can you let me borrow their flag for a second?" With tears streaming down his face, the warrior reaches out and takes Ben-Lur's hand. "I offer my boundless admiration for your dedication," Ben says as a brilliant purple and gold light erupts. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light washes over the entire battlefield. The warrior looks up in shock as Ben-Lur shouts, "Raise your heads, warriors of the North. Leave your old worries behind and walk on the earth once more." The flag of the Coastal Defense Force stands tall, a silent shout to warriors who have long since passed away. The Defense Force is ordered to come back. The LRA issues its commands, and from the frozen earth, an army of the dead rises to answer. The mother mountain you promised to guard is being attacked again by the Defense Force. Forgive my delay, for we desperately need the power of those who have crossed over, and even the great rivers of the underworld cannot stop their return. Ben-Lar shouts for every last soldier to march up and form a perfect, shining line together. Their last mission is ready, so finish it before the sun sets and get home safe. As the lone survivor of the Defense Force watches this, he weeps and repeats his oath while his fallen comrades rise up beside him. He lifts his sword high, ready for one final battle with his brothers. Across the field, the Imperial cavalry rides straight toward us. The undead shield wall stands strong and waits for the attack to hit them. They stand as unbreakable shields, refusing to crack no matter how hard the magic pours down on them. Ben-Lara begs the mountain spirits to forgive her for bringing the dead back and to let the soldiers finish their last quest. LRA then turns to Harrier and says that even though the battlefield is intense, learning a little more is sometimes important. Now that their undead army has tipped the scales just right, this place is the perfect training ground for the future leader. Now is the moment for Harrier to show his true mettle, not in a fake test, but on a real battlefield. Harrier just stares back, completely stunned by the chaotic battlefield where death is everywhere and the slaughter is cold and brutal. Then LRA asks him bluntly, "Can you prove yourself here?" When Harrier hesitates, Ben LRA just smacks him right across the face. "You must clear your mind and face the heavy duty of war, even if it brings a curse, because you can never look away." She presses a hand to Harrier's chest, saying, "I'll handle my part, so you just focus on yours." Just as Ben is turning to go, Harrier calls out to ask where he's heading. He must finally settle his score with a certain monster. And there stands the monster Fry, cackling like a madman as he cuts down his enemies. She lets out a delighted scream as she finally unleashes her undead army. Suddenly, Ben Luro leaps off the ledge and shouts, "Now the time has come." "Go, Harrier!" he shouted, sending the plane straight into the chaos of life and death. Ben's voice rings in his head as he puts on his mask, reminding him that he is a warrior of the North who can do it. Down below, the Imperial army gets ready to face him, with their shields raised and mages poised to unleash their magic. A burst of magic shoots through the air straight for him. The Harrier spins and dives with ease, slipping past every explosion without taking a hit. The Imperial soldier just stands frozen in shock, wondering just how powerful this force can be. The Harrier leaps straight onto his face, slashing so hard that blood sprays across the snow. Miran stares in shock, seeing how Harrier moves all wrong without a shield. Ben-Lur says that Harrier shines with his amazing flexibility and explosive strength. Fry snaps at him a focus, but he keeps analyzing, realizing that Harrier's old tricks are just holding him back. He worshipped his mother, a fierce warrior, so he just mimicked her fighting style instead of finding his own. Harrier's true gift is fighting many enemies at once by using tricks and hidden weapons. He performs his moves perfectly, swinging a blade tied to a rope right into an enemy's throat. He is a deadly storm that sweeps through the battlefield, taking out enemies with shocking speed and savage force. Ben LRA knows the truth. That kid is a rogue and warrior just like her. On the battlefield, Harrier feels no fear because this is exactly what it means to be a Northern warrior. Ben LRA watches his student lost in thought and asks, "Hey, where are you looking? Focus." Just as Fry leaps from the air to deliver a deadly scissor kick behind Ben LRA, she warns him that if he keeps acting like a teacher, he will die. Fry suddenly unleashes a wild, furious storm of kicks. With Harrier screaming, "Master," as the new challenger attacks, she finds herself caught between Ben LRA's grip and a sudden blow aimed right at her. Right as it's about to strike, Miran crashes down, so never let her guard drop. Harrier gasps for air and mutters his thanks to Min, while Ishur Soma watches the scene with a creepy grin. He's still mad that Fry took his kill, but at least he's found a new one. He sees that Harrier moves exactly like the skeletons do. Escher Soma isn't worried because he knows Fry can't beat Ben LRA. He looks at Mirren and Harrier, calling them just a tasty appetizer before the real main course. He shouts, "Come and fight me, northern rookies." He howls with his own Dawn-style wolf technique, creating a huge shock wave that blasts outward. Mirren jokes about Harrier's new look, but tells her to get used to it since they're fighting as a team now. For Harrier, everything is different now. He sees the world with a strange new clarity, free of fear. Now free, he moves like a ghost, dancing through the storm of slashing energy without a scratch. S watches with an annoyed look, remembering how Harrier's quick movements remind him of some not-so-great past moments. With his patience gone, S launches another attack with a Dawn-style wolf hunt, but Harrier spots a gap, and seeing S get winded from the move, he knows this is his moment to strike. He screams for Moran, who instantly shouts, "Okay," back as Harrier yells "Go," and launches himself through the air like a weapon straight at their enemy. But then, a creepy, toothy smile spreads across his face. Harrier's eyes go wide as S reveals his attack isn't over, unleashing the next phase that makes the wolf hunt howl and leaves Harrier feeling like his life is ending right now. Suddenly, his life speeds by like a movie, and he remembers the happy days of playing with Moran when he was a child. He has always loved hearing about the Northern Warriors since he was just a kid, and maybe it was his mom who sparked that love. But Mirren cuts in and whispers to him. Then she goes limp, stuck through the chest by the blade, having taken the hit for Harrier. While Mirren falls, a much bigger fight is happening elsewhere, where the snowy mountains shake from a giant battle. Fry lands smoothly, slipping just in time to avoid a huge hit from Ben LRA. Ben LRA leaves no room for breath and rushes back into the battle instantly. Fry dodges the attack by swinging her huge blade. It sends sparks flying everywhere with a powerful impact. Ben LRA flips backward over her head, just avoiding a massive swing that would have sliced her in two. Fry never stops pressing her advantage, her blows coming so fast that Ben LRA can only scramble to block and dodge. Fry plants her feet deep into the ground to unleash a powerful new technique. Ben LRA watches with a frown, wondering just what this new stance means. Fry jumps high into the air and brings her sword down with a scream, unleashing her attack, the Earth Horizon Breaker. The blast wave swallows everything in its path and knocks Ben LRA flying. The force slams her heart hard against the mountainside. She glances back at the mess she just made. Fry crunches on the fallen as he moves forward, and you realize he took that hit on purpose. She wondered if she dodged the attack to keep the soldiers behind her safe. To Fry, caring for your friends feels like a silly and weak thing to do. Then LRA just points at her and calls her talk nonsense while asking why you're trampling over your own teammates. Fry glances down, and for a split second, she is truly baffled. Then she bursts out laughing, stepping over the dead bodies and calling them just lumps of meat. Ben LRA stares in shock while Frey's face turns serious as she says she has a question for him. She's noticed that Ben LRA keeps switching hands and even pulls back his sword just to throw a punch. "Why fight one by one with your fists?" she asks, puzzled by the way something keeps breaking her opponent's rhythm. She's not sure if Ben LRA is lost or if her past as a party member is holding her back. She grinned with a knowing look, piecing it all together. "So you're a rogue, are you?" Then LRA looks surprised and admits Fry is quite smart for a guy who looks like a brute, but Fry isn't finished because he keeps looking back at his friends in the distance. "You look like a little kid, but you're really the Knight Commander, aren't you?" Fry suddenly jumps forward to close the distance. "Do you still want to look away from me?" In a split second, she unleashes a crushing strike that slices through everyone near her. Fry mocks Ben LRA, daring him to guess how she'll slip away this time. Ben LRA doesn't run. She slips under the wild swing and slices through Frey's leg with a lightning-fast slash. Even though Fry was hurt, he didn't even flinch. Her eyes stayed fixed on her target. She strikes back with a powerful slash that catches Ben LRA completely off guard. Ben LRA whispered to herself in amazement, unable to believe that the crazy woman had fought back even with her legs sliced open. Frey's left too many chances for us to slip through, but her reach was short, and I wish she still had her real blades instead of this cursed demon sword. Fry tucks her hair behind her ear, but she still can't read Ben Lara's strange, broken movements. She mocks her, questioning if her sword is too heavy to fight, but Ben doesn't even hear because his eyes are locked on Harrier, holding Mirren's body. Fry realizes she has drifted off again. Furious that Ben isn't paying attention, she tightens her fist and hits him again, sending Ben Lyra flying. As Ben Lyra rolls through the broken wreckage, Fry calls her heartless. She screams at her for shouting at the hundreds dying around them while only caring about her own lackeys. A dark voice whispers directly into Ben LRA's head. This is the single most relatable thing that any witch has ever said. It hisses, mocking her for failing to save the fallen soldiers, while truly calling her heartless. The voice urges her to look at the endless slaughter, all caused by human greed. Stop fighting and realize that she was once a hero who saved humans, only to be thrown away by them. In the end, she will have to swing her sword against them. Suddenly, a voice breaks through the sadness, reminding me of Murin. She wonders why Ben keeps apologizing for the war and blames himself for bringing it to them. She waves it away and asks why you're blaming yourself for their attack, reminding you that they're the ones who did the bad thing. As warriors, they only fight to guard the ones they love, and she has nothing to do with it. She tells Ben LRA that she is a warrior from the North, just like them. It is simple. With the North's will as our guide, we warriors must step onto the battlefield. Mirin's last whisper still rings in her head, telling her to stop blaming herself. Filled with fresh determination, she suddenly remembers something she had almost entirely forgotten after such a long time. She used to be a fierce fighter from the North long ago. Even if her friends fall on the battlefield, she must never hesitate because she carries the hopes of everyone who has already died. Memories of her old parties flash through his mind, and he realizes they only feel strong when they stand together. She finds her strength renewed by the sight of the young hero's bright smile. Fry had enough of his endless talking and muttered that listening to him was just disgusting. She brings her blade down with a mighty crash that cracks the earth beneath her feet. Then LRA doesn't even flinch and instead launches her own counterattack. Suddenly, a spray of blood erupts from a deep cut in her body, and Frey's eyes go wide with shock. Now that she has lost her sword, the LRA's weapon splits into two glowing daggers. You wonder why the flow keeps breaking, and then LRA roars like a storm, spinning like a deadly whirlwind as she shouts, "This is the answer!" before unleashing a mountain boar slash so brutal it sends Fry flying. Suddenly, Fry understands everything. Her face twisted into a wild grin, revealing that Ben Lura used to fight with two swords. Ben Lara responds by unleashing a huge cross-shaped explosion of bright purple power. The attack comes as a blinding storm of slashes that tear straight through the mountainside. Fry can't believe that fool thinks he'll win, just because he has another sword. A dark figure towers over her, sneering at her as a weak human, while mocking her as a warrior who has never truly felt the sting of death. "You are both proud and pitiful," he says to her. Furious Fry is blown backward while screaming, "Don't you dare look down on me." But just as Luro moves in to press her advantage, she suddenly feels a terrifying dark power rising. Fry unleashes her ultimate move, the spiral-style heavenly axis, heaven and earth splitter. To fight back, Ben LRA has to remember her past greatness. The instant she vanquished the Demon King, she had to flawlessly repeat that one sharp blow that once brought down a god. She breaks out her own final move, the Northern-style hunting technique. Way down below, the fierce fighting suddenly stops, and every soldier, friend, and enemy looks up at the mountains. Two crashes smash together and slice the whole mountain peak right off. The name of the final attack echoes across the battlefield as the evil annihilation quake obliterates the Ascalon Dragon Slayer in the mountaintop, leaving Harrier to tell Miran it will be fine even though his desperate eyes reveal he knows it won't be. He grabs her broken body and tries to hold it together, but it won't work. As she coughs up a spray of blood, her life slips away with every single drop. He screams at her shut up because his blood won't stop flowing. His mind races wildly, screaming for his wounds to heal so everything can slide back inside him. He drops to his knees in the pool of her blood, begging her not to pass away. And then, as expected, the villain steps in to kick him while he's down, standing tall and laughing at his suffering. He yells at Harrier, calling her a pathetic, whining little brat. And just like that, Harrier's deep sadness explodes into pure rage, and with Mirren in his arms, he vows to kill them himself. S bites the hook, his face twisting in rage as he smashes his fist down on Harrier's head. Harrier stands firm and takes the hit straight on, never losing his focus for a single second. S scolds him for being a mindless brute and lectures him on what true justice means. Right as he was about to deliver the final strike, someone new stepped onto the field. A huge crash of snow blocked the attack. "If we're the barbarians," a voice replies, "then you must be some kind of monkey." Harrier could only stare in shock. Right on cue, his master has finally made it. S goes absolutely crazy, screaming Ben LRA's name in a rage-fueled frenzy. Benler calmly tells his student to cool his head. "She's staying here, just to buy herself some time. S scoffs and mocks Ben LRA for already finding a new dog so quickly after the hero died. Ben LRA quickly retorts, that wild red which before asked if I felt sorry for the dying Imperial soldiers, but they too have homes and families waiting for them, admitting she felt a bit of guilt, but realizing that in war, it is just kill or be killed. Facing S, her resolve is set, and when he agrees that war is heartless, the truth feels heavy. And with that, she lunges forward, slamming into Soma with raw, crushing power. Now her goal is clear: crush the enemy and guard her friends, with no room for any doubt. She looks at Harrier and says, now you must decide too, while Ben L fights Soma, and Harrier screams wildly for a medic. Ben stops him and tells him not to worry about her, but to go help his master. She grabs his arm to snap him back to duty, begging him to join the fight and save Miss Skeleton without forgetting his true role. As her final moments come, her last wish is for him to stay alive and build the future they once dreamed of. She lets her hand go limp one last time, silently begging him to leave. Harrier screams in agony, his tiny last hope finally broken into pieces. Her last wish was to make him the guardian of everyone. She hands everything over to her boss. Feeling the shift, Benler charges forward and unleashes his frosty grand brawl attack. S just laughs, making fun of Ben LRA's weak attacks after he loses to Fry. He twists the knife and asks if she's worried her new student is about to have a mental breakdown. Ben LRA catches the next swing with his bare hand. Harrier says she will never break. Just as S calls her stupid, Ben LR sends him flying with a crushing counterattack. S lashes out with a kick, sneering that empty hope only breaks people down. Ben LRA catches it without trouble, and the girl shouts, "Bull!" She insists it's not encouragement, but hope, because her student won't lose themselves to rage like she did. Yet right as she readies for the next strike, a sharp shock of pain hits him. Just as he needs it most, the weakness from his battle with Fry is finally taking hold. Cece grins with a wicked twist and shouts, "Cow!" right before Harrier leaps in to block the falling sword and save his master. The parry hits so hard that it throws, stumbling all the way back into the snow. Harrier thanked him for buying time, saying he'd finally cooled down. S stood up, gripping the new wound on his chest as he screamed in pain. He screams that he will kill you for sure. Harrier feels as cold as ice and coldly tells Soma to switch players, his mind stuck on his oldest friend. He realizes that from the very first day they met, he has so much to apologize for. He has always felt thankful for the gifts he received, yet he has always regretted the pain he caused. As he fights his enemy, he keeps saying sorry to Min. S's heavy blade slams into his shield, but he clenches his teeth and keeps pushing ahead. I keep apologizing again and again. Their swords crash together in a violent burst that splatters blood all over the snow. In a shocking twist, Harrier and S both get stabbed on each other's blades. Slaps Harrier hard, screaming, "Let go! Are you planning to die with me?" But Harrier holds on with absolute determination. Muron, I will live for your dream, he shouts with a raw, animalistic scream, pouring every drop of his grief and anger into this single, burning moment. He drives his sword deep into S, but S quickly pulls his own blade free. Then LRA screams his name in alarm as the impaled S makes one final, desperate swing. The Harrier has settled into a calm rhythm, effortlessly sidestepping and cutting back to push S backward. Suddenly, Ben L's sword comes down on his back. S curses in defeat, while Benler screams Harrier behind him. Suddenly, a glowing magic circle erupts from the ground as Q steps forward. It turns out the folks from the north were playing a game 4 steps ahead of us the whole time. The secret plan was to trick the enemy into a tight squeeze and then trap them there until they were buried. Soma finally sees the truth. They have been walking straight into a trap from the very start. Harrier stands over the fallen knight and declares, "This is the end," while preparing his final move and silently offering a bouquet of white flowers to Moran in his heart. He throws down his last strike with all his might. A flame lance and a vicious hound unleashed by death strike directly at the target, landing a perfect hit. As the picture of the flowers disappears, he whispers his last goodbye to her, saying, "Goodbye, Min." Harrier stood all by himself in the big, white snow. Suddenly, he hears a voice, turns around, and sees Ben LR screaming his name. A huge mountain is about to crash right behind us. Ben LRA shouts his own name as she jumps toward him. Without them knowing, someone is spying on them from a distance through a glowing crystal ball. The mysterious observer asks, "Why did you only start moving now?" while Ben LRA Edwards calls out her full name. The fight for the Northern Mountains is done because the Empire's 1,000 soldiers attacked the range and got crushed, leaving both Escher Soma's front line and Frey's team completely gone. And what about the other 400 soldiers waiting in the back? Yeah, they got deleted right along with everyone else. The northern chieftain of the Hawker tribe laughs at their plan, calling them fools for starting a war when they should be focusing on survival. Her huge partner nods in agreement, promising he'll never get the folks from the lowlands. And here's the thing. These two absolute legends took out the whole Imperial army on their own, which is a total skill issue. Now that the fight is over, they're told to leave the fleeing coward alone and instead look for their own lost friends. While Benler's ghost soldiers trudge forward through the white snow, they move with a deadly purpose. They halt right before the survivor. The man sees friends he knows walking among the dead. Just as if given a signal, the whole resurrected army shattered and blew away by the wind. Ben Lr stands in awe, realizing her necromancy only moves the dead. Usually, they're just dead bodies with no memories left. But these soldiers were different. They had the strength to stand right beside their living friends just as they had when they were alive. Touched by what he saw, the survivor insisted he must thank them and give them a proper burial. But Red Silk, the chieftain, steps in to stop him and declares that these warriors died on the battlefield, so no funeral is needed. He tells you that the greatest honor for a warrior is to rest right where they fall. Silk says the families will use their own things to build graves. They give back to the land in the way their people do. Ben Luro murmurs, "That's just the kind of people we are." Red Silk walks up to Harrier, who is kneeling in the snow, and puts a hand on his shoulder. He cheers on Harrier and Murin for fighting right on the front lines, calling them real warriors of the North. Red Silk says sorry for not knowing what you can do. He asks what's left for Harrier after losing everything, and Harrier just clenches his fist, feeling a strange new heaviness settle in his hands. Red Silk asks him to go back to the village where a festival is getting ready to honor the heroes who died. When night falls, the whole village bursts into a wild party filled with fireworks. The warriors drink and share brave tales of their fallen friends, but Harry, tired and hurt, sits quietly and admits he actually kind of missed the festive funerals. He remembers the funerals in the South, where everyone was just crying and sad. Ben Lra asks if he knows why northern funerals are so grand, and the answer is that the people live so close to death that they celebrate life with extra flair. She tells Harrier that crying is a sad way to end things, because Moran would rather see a smile than tears. Harrier lifts his head, his heart set, and tells Moran that his dream is now in his hands. He refuses to break because it would be disrespectful, and with a small smirk he jokes that she just hit him on the head, a sentiment Ben Lra agrees with since it would make everyone from her old friends to her family furious if she let rage blind her. So she apologizes to Harrier for not being there when Moran passed away, because she was scared of losing herself. It really matters that they keep being themselves. They must keep the memory of those who fell alive while moving forward. And there it is, folks, as Ben Lra swaps the easy road of revenge for the tough journey of becoming a hero. She asks Harrier to smile for Moran. Harrier smiles and says yes, and Lra tells him to go eat since she needs to take care of something before she leaves. Just as his master walks away, Harrier finally gets it. He can see just how bad his master truly is. He sees that Ben Lra is falling apart and constantly teeters on the edge of becoming the killer she used to be, crushed by the hopes of everyone around her. Harrier stares at his master's back and wonders what to do, and 2 days later, he and Ben Lra stand before a council of tribal chieftains. Red Silk tells us that while a few tribes are still traveling, one leader steps forward to greet them. I am Du Rexer of the Dawn Sky Tiger tribe, greeting the spirits rising from below. Harrier stands frozen, having only ever read about this legendary tribe in books. Rexer reveals that their shaman saw Ben Lra's future and that they traveled this far just to hand him one special item. The shaman slides a tiny purple wooden tablet into Ben Lra's hand, telling him to take it since he'll need it one day. Ben Lra accepts it, and the shaman shakes his hand, whispering just one mysterious word, ancestor. The shaman asks her which road she picked, trying to guess what happened before that could lead her to such a fate. Watching this, Red Silk is totally confused and asks Ancestor, "What on earth are you talking about?" The shaman just gives a knowing smile. She's surprised Red Silk is clueless. She tells Ben Lra it is fine.